Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm Z.S. Caravallo from ZK Research, and I'm joined today by a returning guest, Guy Diedrich from Cisco. You run the CDA program. Guy, it's great to have you back. Why don't you just say hello to everybody and just give us a quick bio on what you do.
Well, thank you, ZS. It's always good to be with you, whether it's here on ZKast or in all the different places around the world where we get to run into each other.
There's a lot of places.
Yeah, a lot of places.
Yeah.
So at Cisco, I'm the Senior Vice President, Global Innovation Officer, and I'm responsible for two programs. One is called Country Digital Acceleration, where we work with countries around the world and presidents and prime ministers and various ministries to help them digitize faster, to help them execute on their national digital agendas more quickly. And the other program that I'm responsible for is a networking academy, which is Cisco's training and education program operating in 190 countries around the world, where we train up next generation networking professionals, cybersecurity professionals, etc.
Yeah, and so we're going to do, you were on last year and we talked a lot about the CDA program, Country Digital Acceleration, and what it did. I'll make sure I include the link below so if people want to do a little refresher, they can, but I think you just did a good job there. Now, I know the addition of Networking Academy, or NetAcad, as it tends to be known in more common vernacular, is new to be rolled up under you, and the two are combined and renamed to the Digital Impact Office. So can you go through the thought process of why it made sense to bring NetAcad under your purview, and then why the change to DIO?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The Country Digital Acceleration Program is all about empowering an inclusive future for all. It is the manifestation of Cisco's purpose on the ground. Well, NetAcad goes right alongside that. You can't be making investments in technology, in digitization, all by itself, just the technology, just the equipment. You have to also invest in the intellectual capital of the country, invest in the education. And so what we realized is that every country that we go into, we're making those technology investments, helping them execute on their national digital agendas. But we were also making investments in skilling up those key intellectual capital assets that they have, their people, where the two combined are stronger than individually the various programs are. So we went ahead and combined the two into a single digital impact office. And the logic behind the naming of that is that's exactly what the two programs do, is they have an impact on the digitization of that country. They allow them to realize the full value of digitization.
Now, I think before we do a little bit deeper dive on Country Digital Acceleration, can you just, for those that don't know Networking Academy or NetAcad, right? It's a much bigger program that I think a lot of people realize. Can you just talk a little bit about that program, how far-reaching it is, how many people it's trained, the type of skills they learn?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, NetAcad has been around for 25 years. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, in fact. And we've trained up over 17.5 million people around the world in 190 countries. There's only 192 on the globe. Yeah. So it is basically a completely global program. And what it was intended to do originally, Zias, was to introduce people and get them trained up on this new thing called the network. That was our equipment. We needed to have people trained up that knew how to install and how to maintain and how to innovate using that equipment. And so that was the genesis of the program. It now has spanned into multiple different levels of certification for Cisco networking equipment. And it's also gone into cybersecurity and digital skilling and programming Python, other languages that people can get trained up on through the Networking Academy. So really what we've done is we've evolved the Networking Academy as the needs of the students around the world have evolved.
Yeah, and it's interesting, it's always taught good networking skills. And there was a period of time, when I started my career back in the the 90s, networking was hot, right? We were building the internet out, and then it seemed for a while that the focus was taken off the network, but it seems like over the last few years, in fact, if you just look at the financial performance of your company and all the networking companies, it's been very good, even in this period where we've seen a lot of layoffs in tech and things. And so it seems like networking skills have now become, critically important again. Is that something you guys are seeing with NetAcad?
Absolutely. We've never seen greater interest in networking education and upskilling and reskilling for networking capabilities. Listen, a network is more relevant than it's ever been. That's the bottom line, is that even with cloud, even with all of the evolution in technology, the networking, the connectivity, connecting people securely has never been more important, and it's going to continue.
Yeah, in fact, an interesting just data point from my research, I asked business leaders if their opinion of the network has changed since the start of the pandemic, and 58% said it's either slightly more important or significantly more important than it was 2 years ago. So I think that just speaks testament to it. So, one of the interesting things that's talked a lot about in the industry is skills gap, right? And in fact, I attended a Politico event hosted by one of Cisco's partners, Worldwide Technology, sponsored by Cisco. Actually, Frank Katsoudas, your Chief People Process and Purpose Officer, spoke there. And there were 6 US governors that spoke. And the one thing that they could agree upon that was a bipartisan, and they never agree on anything, though, was the importance of creating new digital skills today, because there is a big shortage of those. So can you just talk, I know there's a lot of IT people that watch the show. What are the types of skills, that NetAcad is actually training people on that you think are going to be necessary for, not the past 10 years, but the next 10 years?
Yeah, I understand why those governors were so engaged and why it was so important, because they're indicative, they're a microcosm of what's happening on the macro level all over the world. It is a number one issue for all 48 of our countries, now actually 50 countries around the world. And what we find is that from the World Economic Forum, that we're going to be displacing 85 million jobs because of digitization between now and the end of 2025. That's an awful lot of people who have done nothing wrong, but their jobs are simply going to become obsolete because of digitization, AI, ML, various other technologies. So it is our obligation to skill them up, because at the exact same time, 97 million new digitization jobs are going to be created that require digital skills. So we can retrain and upskill those 85 million displaced workers to take on those new digital age jobs, those jobs around security, cybersecurity technicians, networking professionals, programmers. But we also have, because there's 97 million being created, there's 12 million net new jobs that we have to upskill. So to me, it is an obligation of industry, academia, and government to make sure that we get those jobs filled and we upskill and reskill those that are going to be losing their jobs.
Yeah, the net addition of 12 million jobs is interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because this, honestly, guys, this reminds me of when, I was early in my career and the internet was coming into its own. A lot of people thought the internet would take away jobs from traditional marketers. I was an open systems person, worked on Windows and Unix machines. It was taking away mainframe jobs. And what we saw through that whole wave was this massive addition of new jobs. And while I think there's, a 12 million people skills gap now, I imagine as we get more into AI, ML, and analytics and things like that, that that net addition of 12 jobs is going to grow to 20 and 30. And I think we're going to see way more jobs created on the back end of this transition than we see removed. So I think that's personally good news for the whole economy and for all the people in IT. And I'm sure you see it that way as well.
I completely agree. And this is just a normal economic churn. It happens every time an economy evolves. So we were at one point in the US an agrarian economy. We churned those jobs out and became a manufacturing-based economy. We churned those jobs out and became an information economy. Now we've churned them out and have become an innovation-based economy. The point is that the economy continues to grow as long as you evolve. And that's what's happening right now.
All right. Now, you mentioned the CDA is up to 50 countries, and I want to shift back to that. How many? So what were we at last year when we did this? And so I'm just trying to get a sense of how many new that you've added, and can you talk about who those are?
Yeah, so I believe we were at 44 countries last time we spoke. We're now at 50. And we have added a variety of different countries. So we have Singapore, we have Poland, we have Ukraine, we have Vietnam, and then we're just now starting to get into Africa, where we're looking to engage in Botswana and Kenya and Nigeria and Ghana, and they're all in various stages of engagement. So we have gone from 44 to 50 countries very, very proudly. There continue to be countries in the pipeline that we're evaluating. So you're going to see more countries coming on in the coming year. And importantly, we're also doubling down and reinvesting in a lot of those countries that have been in the program for some time. We do a second round of investment, in some cases, a third round of investment. And these investments are not short-term investments. These are 3-year investments in the digitization of these countries. So when we do a second round or a third round, we're talking about 6, 9, and eventually potentially 12 and 15 years of investment that we're making in these countries in their digital journey.
And I want to make sure people understand here when you say investment, this isn't some slick sales model for Cisco, right? You're not going in there and trying to sell a bunch of equipment. Cisco actually invests its own capital and equipment in the company. Is that correct?
Right, that's exactly right. So the model was we formed it under our CEO lives by this notion that if we do good, we'll do well. If we do the right things around the world for the citizens of countries, then the company will flourish. And that's turned out to be absolutely true. And CDA is a great example of that. So what we do is we align to the national digital agenda. We don't come in and say, we're from Cisco, we're here to help. Our solutions coming out of San Jose are going to solve all of your problems. It's none of that. It's truly aligning to what the country has already defined as their priorities. They already know what's going to move the needle for them. They already know what's going to have the greatest impact on their populations. And so we can step in and say, we'll bring Cisco products and services, but also the products and services of our 60,000 partner companies around the world to help solve these problems. And Cisco will invest directly. We'll be the first money in. We will fund the pilot or the proofs of concept related to these technological challenges, and we'll prove it out through that pilot. Then when it comes to scaling up or replicating the successful projects, that's up to the government. That's up to the country itself. But we help get them there so that they know that their digital experience is going to be impactful and it's going to work.
And then once you're in a country and the government has gone through this digitization process, do you then find that the business leaders in that country also get on board and try and replicate what the government's done?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw very early on that our investments in the national digital agenda together with government leaked very quickly into the private sector. And what we've even found is that getting local companies involved in solving local challenges allows them to grow themselves. And importantly, Zias, when we get it right in one country and we have now 49 others to take it to, We can take a local company that's a part of a local solution and make them global through replication in our other CDA countries. So it's become a fantastic growth mechanism for a lot of small startups.
And then so now you've got 50 under your belt. I mean, that's not an insignificant sample size, right? That's over a quarter of the world's countries. Do you find that there's a cookie cutter methodology here, or is how much of every project is, standard, and then how much is custom?
So I'll draw a distinction here, because the CDA process, the actual process of country digital acceleration as defined by Cisco, is a fixed process. We are a process-driven program. We do the exact same way of engaging, the exact same way of exploring, of developing that architecture, of building out those execution plans and those budgets. What's different, of course, are the needs of the country. So we have not had a single country that has been in any way really truly similar to any other country. I will say this, though. We have certain threads of continuity through all 50. So you have security is paramount in all 50 countries. Education and upskilling in particular is a component in all 50 countries. Healthcare is a component in all 50. And then sustainability, which is new. We have not had sustainability. If you had asked me 3 years ago, how many countries around the world, how many world leaders have sustainability as a top 5 priority in their country? And it would have been easy to answer. I would have said 0. Absolutely none. Today, all 50. So that shows the commitment that world leaders have to sustainability and climate change eradication.
Okay, well, that's interesting too, because what you're talking about is public sector leading innovation in the country. And without getting on my political soapbox in this country, it would be nice to see that domestically. So, but I'll just leave it at that. Now, you mentioned with a few countries, you're starting a second and third round of investment. So once you do that initial investment, what's it like with the second and third round? What are you trying to accomplish there?
So it varies country to country, but in most cases, we start out by doubling down on the successful initiatives from round 1. So we have, by the time we do a second round of investment, we have, in some cases, almost 3 years of experience with a country. We know what has worked and what hasn't. We know what has moved that needle for that country, what has truly had an impact, and what hasn't. So that allows us to optimize our investments, our double downs in certain areas, in certain countries. And then we have a whole new group of projects that emerge based on the needs of that country, based on technological evolution, based on a variety of different factors. So it allows us to really accentuate the things that have gone very, very well, and then allows us to take on new challenges as the needs of the country evolve.
Right. And as a way of maybe trying to bring this to reality, for some people, can you provide any insights or give some examples of what CDA has done to some of the countries that you've been
in? Sure. I mean, we have right now, Zeus, over the life of the program, which is almost 9 years old now, in our 50 countries, we have completed over 1,500 individual digitization projects in just about every single area imaginable. I mean, there are literally dozens and dozens of different categories. So I think about the impact that we have. A great example would be through our networking academy, CDA combination in Ukraine. We had, as you know, a number of Ukrainians cross the border into Poland, and particularly in a town called Rzeszów, and it's right on the Poland-Ukraine border. And as you likely also know, most of the people coming across were women and children as the men stayed back to fight the war. Well, they're going to be there now for a long time, and they want to get skilled up. They want to work. They want to contribute to the financial success of their family. And so we started a program called Start IT, which is dedicated to training up 10,000 women, Ukrainian women that have come over the border. And we're standing up that program right now. We're also investing in networking connectivity throughout Ukraine. We're investing in projects related to security, securing the network, securing the data in Ukraine, which is a huge issue. And then you can take that and you can look at what we've done in Japan for bringing schools into the digital age, in many cases for the first time, connecting parts of Israel and the Eastern Negev into the internet for the first time, parts of India, introducing those students and those families in villages outside of the main cities to the internet for the first time. So it's all about trying to build up resilient communities at this point for us.
Yeah. Well, that's if that is not, I guess, the ultimate manifestation of power and inclusive future, then I guess I don't know what is, because that certainly sounds like you're actually walking the walk there. So congratulations on that. I know that's been a big focus for the world. So anyways, Guy, thanks for the update. And just one last question for you. What's next for the program? You had talked about sort of growth in Africa. I assume that's one thing, but what else can we expect here?
Yeah, so growth in Africa is a real priority. We know that the model isn't going to be the same as, say, going into a Germany or a UK or a Japan, but we're adapting the model so that it can have that impact on key countries in Africa. I think if you look, we're going to continue to grow the program. We're going to continue to invest in countries that want to partner with Cisco. But really, our focus moving forward is going to be on resilient communities. CDA and NetAcad, the Digital Impact Office, as it is now known, is really the tip of the spear in terms of entering into communities and creating a resilient environment for them. Coming behind us is the entire 3P organization. So Fran Katsudis' organization that you mentioned is People, Policy, and Purpose. And we have an entire group led by Mary Dewasaki dedicated to sustainability. We have so many different parts of social impact led by Brian Tippins. We have the Purpose organization that can be right there with us as we go into communities, and we bring all of that knowledge, all of those resources, and all that expertise towards building up a resilient community. And what works in one part of the world when it comes to resilience can work in other parts of the world. So we'll get that value of replication as well. To me, there's really no end to CDA. As the needs of countries evolve, as the needs of their citizens evolve, Cisco will be there to help them through the Digital Impact Office.
All right. So there's no worry that you can run a country soon.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I actually believe I misspoke. I think I said people, policy, and process, right? But it's actually purpose.
You know what? But a lot of what Fran does is process too. So, but yeah. It is People, Policy, and Purpose Office. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had the pleasure of meeting her several times. She's a wonderful lady, and I know does a lot of great things for Cisco and for the world in general. So anyways, Guy, thank you very much for that update. I'm always curious to see what your organization is doing, because everyone knows Cisco is the big, $50 billion technology company that sells a lot of network equipment. But I've always said there's so much more to Cisco than that. In fact, I'm glad to see Cisco doing this, because I do think if change is going to come in this world, it's going to come through the large tech vendors, because you understand how to use this stuff best. So, thank you for all you do. And, thanks to Cisco for, pushing so hard with this program. Anyways, on behalf of Guy Diederich, I'm Zeus Caravala. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I will include links to Networking Academy, to Cisco CDA, and to Cisco in general down below. Anyways, thanks, Guy, for joining me, and I'll see you next time on another ZKast.